If you're working with AI agents within N8N, then you probably know about the challenge if you want to make an expert out of them, right? So that you want to get reliable information and not having to deal with hallucinations and everything that comes with this. Now, there is a way how you can do this, but you might probably think of something like vector databases and a RAG system, which are the right approach, but still you would have to maintain them yourself, right? So what I would like to show you in this video is a solution which will, first of all, take care of itself and will be, at the end of the day, the most reliable solution to equip your agent with the according knowledge. So let's first of all take a look into the most obvious solution, right? So I have an AI agent connected to my chat trigger node right here, and this is again connected via Open Router to GPT 5.2 right now. And if I open this, then I get access to, first of all, also the system message. And if you don't see this, this is probably hidden behind the add option button right here. And then also the user prompt will be coming from the connected chat trigger node, as you can see right here. Now, the system message obviously could be a source for you to, equip your agent with the according knowledge, right? So you can write pages into the system prompt itself, and then every time you talk to that agent, it will be aware of the knowledge that it is supposed to have, right? Now, this obviously is not the most elegant solution. First of all, it's really tedious to jump into the system prompt every time something changes that you want your agent to know about. And then second of all, obviously, are the tokens, right? So all the tokens that you all have to send over to your agent every time you are sending a message, Now, another approach might be the memory node that you could think of. So if you choose use the memory connector right here, then you can choose between different kinds of memories. But again, this is just for short-term memory, right? And I have created a video about this very effect and how you can make or massively improve the memory of your agent. Another solution obviously would be to use the tools that you have connected right here. So if you take a look into this, then we have access to the vector stores, right? And if you have connected, or if you have a vector store database running in the background, something like Pinecone, for instance, or if you're running a Postgres or Supabase vector store, then you are able to equip your agent with that specific knowledge, So if, for instance, let's say I have prepared the Supabase vector store right here, which is extremely simple. This is just a simple table view of what the information could be, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that there are certain information the enterprise that you are working for has as an internal knowledge base, and you can equip your agent with that knowledge. However, if you are working with external tools, something like N8N or something like Supabase itself, then there is a way how you can massively improve also the maintenance part, because you don't have to deal with this, but it will be actually taken care of. So imagine that you want to build an N8N assistant, right? So we have an N8N agent right here, or let's say this is an N8N agent or an N8N assistant. Then obviously the most reliable knowledge base for this would be the N8N docs themselves, And there is actually a hint where all of this is going to lead us to, because if you have ever interacted with this chat with the docs button, this is extremely interesting. Because if you open up this, then you get a chatbot as well. And this itself is connected not only to the N8N docs themselves, but also to the community. And you might be familiar with the N8N community, where you are also be able to find tutorials and Q&As and whatnot. So a lot of insider information from the community themselves. And the agent that you see right here, the chatbot, if you will, is connected to both the docs and the community itself. So this is extremely powerful knowledge, right? And obviously the documentation is going to be taken care of N8N, right? So they are going to take care of this. So how can we connect our agent here with a third-party service, for instance, or with the docs of a third-party service, like N8N itself, for instance? And you can obviously adjust this to what you are using, right? To the tools you are using. And there is a tool called kapa.ai, and if you go into the N8N docs and chat with the docs, then you can see that this very chatbot that you see right here is actually powered by kapa.ai. And the interesting approach that they are using is that they are basically providing those chatbots with the internal knowledge or with the specific docs from the specific software, right? So in our case, this would be N8N itself. And there's actually a pretty nice saying that they have right here, which just basically reads AI that says, I don't know, because this, and you might already be familiar with this, is one of the major problems within the LLMs themselves, right? That they, first of all, not only have have generic knowledge of a specific tool, of a specific software, but also that they claim to know exactly what they are talking about, right? So the hallucination part. And this is actually not the case with these types of knowledge systems, because they will tell you that they don't know, or that the docs that you are referring to or that you want to know something about actually don't provide that information that you're looking for. And this is something unique, right? Now, so the tool that is going to take care of that is called Context7. And you might have already heard of this. And this is an extremely powerful platform where you are able to access I wouldn't say all the documentations that are out there, obviously not, but if you scroll down here on their website themselves, then first of all, you are introduced to a couple of popular and trending documentations from specific providers, as you can see here. But then there are also 70,000 different or further libraries that you have access to, right? And you can even try this out, so you are able to chat with the docs. And since we are using an N8N expert, right, I want to look for the most recent ones and or the most trending ones. And N8N used to be here actually, so it's not anymore. So I'm going to look for N8N itself, and here you can see that the source for this specific library are actually the N8N, the official N8N docs, right? And if I click on this, then this leads me to the GitHub page where we have all that information bundled into one document, if you will. And so begs the question, obviously, first of all, how do I connect this? And then second of all, in regards to the pricing, because there are free plans, right? And this has proven to be pretty reliable also, not only in regards to the quality of the content that you get back from the docs, but also in regards to the amount of data that you're able to receive, so this can be extremely interesting. So how do you connect this to your system? And if you have created an account, obviously you would need to create an account really quickly, then you get access to your dashboard. And if you click on this, then you already see that here you can create your own API key, obviously, right? And then on the bottom half corner right here, you can see that there are different ways how you can connect this to your specific system. And we have an API URL, so you could basically do it the older, the classical way, but they also provide an MCP server. And now it actually gets interesting, because we know that within N8N we have the availability or the ability to connect to MCP servers, right? Using the MCP client of N8N. And this is what we're going to do. And if you're working with something like Cloud Code or Open Code or Cursor or whatever, then you already get the command and all the configuration parts right here, so that you just need to copy and paste this into your recording system. All right, but I want to connect this to my N8N agent, so I'm going back into N8N itself, and you can see that I already prepared the MCP client tool right here. So the way I'm going to look for this is just by clicking on this connector right here, and then I have access to the MCP client tool, right? And if I open this up, then you can see that there are just a couple of settings that I need to conduct. The first one obviously will be to use the endpoint of that specific MCP server, and you have already seen that this is the URL that you get right here. So we just copy and paste this right inside of this endpoint right here. The server transport will be HTTP streamable, and then the authentication obviously would be the API key that you just got out of your own dashboard from Context7 itself, right? And then you can, within those MCP client server settings, you can choose if you want to use all the tools that are available via that MCP server, or if you just want to handpick a selected couple, if you will, from the tools that you have access to, or if you want to use a negative logic, if you will, and not use certain tools. Now, the tools to include are actually just two, because what this does, or how this works, is that it first of all, so the MCP server works, is that first of all it gives you access to resolve a library ID, and then you get a very extensive explanation which the agent will be able to read, so that it exactly knows how this tool works, right? And then the second thing will just be to query the docs, which basically means that if you are within Context7, then you can also look into the libraries, if you will, via their own portfolio or via their own catalog, just like we did here. So we would just use for look for or query N8N, right? And then we would know what this endpoint is called and what the source is called and how we can access this. And this is basically everything that the agent will also be doing when it uses the resolve library ID and the query docs, right? So it basically looks for the appropriate source based on the prompt that you give it. And this obviously begs the question, how do we not only connect this? I can do this easily just like so, but what is the prompt going to look like? So if I open this up again, you remember this is the system message that I had before, which I'm going to replace with the prompt that I have prepared earlier. And I'm going to open this up right here. And now you can see you are a helpful N8N assistant, and the tools you have access to via the MCP client will be established by a connection to the MCP server of Context7, right? So we are explicitly saying this so that it knows what the basically workflow is going to be to find that specific documentation. And then we're going to tell it use the library ID, and then we are providing it with the specific ID that we have received earlier, right from the source, right from the source query we have conducted before, right? And then we're basically saying it to get access to the official up-to-date N8N documentation. And this is a fantastic way how you can, always have your agent have access to the up-to-date documentation. Then the workflow is do use the MCP tool every time before responding to make sure you retrieve the specific and correct information from the official N8N docs, right? And obviously this goes for every software that you want to connect to, So then the output will be to respond in a simple way that makes it easier for beginners to understand it, right? So we just want to have an assistant which is basically replicating the chat with the docs function that we have right here, All right, so let's test this. and see how it works. And what I deliberately looked for was a specific N8N information that might not be available to a generic LLM like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, right? And there have actually been a couple of breaking changes with the introduction of version 2 from N8N itself to test this, right? So I'm going back into N8N, and I have added this system prompt now into my agent itself, and I'm going to try this out really quickly. But before I do this, let me just give you a little comparison. So I'm going to disconnect the MCP client tool right here so that it does not have access to Context7 yet. I'm going to delete also the prompt from the system message right here. So I'm just going to tell it, you are a helpful N8N assistant. That's all. No specific further information about the MCP client or Context7 whatsoever. And now I'm actually going to ask it a question. And the question I have prepared will be, what are the breaking changes in N8N 2.0, and let's see what it does. Again, it is connected to GPT 5.2, right? So this is just the only knowledge that it currently has. And now it is even admitting that it can't reliably list the breaking changes of N8N 2.0, right? Because, I mean, that's at least honest, right? We had this sentence right here where it says, I don't know, right? And it is actually now admitting that it doesn't have the specific knowledge, which is probably because I have asked it a very, very specific questions where it even can't hallucinate, right? But still, at the end of the day, this is a major danger that we're dealing with if it is hallucinating and not being that honest. But at the end of the day, the result is the same. The information is not there, right? We are not being provided with the information that we want to have. All right, so let's compare this if we add the MCP client, or rather the documentation from N8N via the MCP client and then also via Context7. So I'm going to reconnect it to my MCP client, and then I'm also going to change the prompt right here back again to the ones we had before. And now we're back to the initial prompt. All right, so let's close this and let's ask it the same question again. What are the breaking changes in N8N 2.0? And now, first of all, what we can see, even while it is already running, that it is accessing the MCP client tool, which is something that we told it to do, right? These were one of the requirements that we explicitly told it to adhere to. Now you can see this took almost 1 minute, but it did actually give me the breaking changes that were introduced with N8N 2.0, right? And we will double check if this is actually true. But before we do this, let's take a look into the log that we can see on the right-hand side. So I have selected the MCP client just to see what it did, right, when it called that specific tool. And here, first of all, you can see that it is actually using that specific library ID that we told it to use, right? So this is actually the input that is going to be sent to Context7 based on the information that it had and that we provided it with, right? And then the tool that it used was actually the query doc. So it is basically now looking for the specific information in that specific document, right, in the specific N8N source. Perfect. So this has worked quite well. And let's quickly double check if the results are actually true. So task runners enabled by default, and let's check this in the breaking changes, and let's just look for task runners, and this is actually exactly the information that we have right here, right? So enabled task runners by default. So this looks good. Let's take a look into the second one. Code node can't read environment variables by default. All right, let's take a look at this. The code node, and this is this one, block environment variable access from code node by default, right? And here you can now see that not only is this extremely powerful, it's also for us from a maintenance point of view extremely comfortable to now equip our agent with the according knowledge from a third-party provider, right? And as I've mentioned before, there is a lot of information. I mean, you see that I only looked for N8N itself, right? And it already gave me a couple of results in that regard. And then if this wasn't enough, if you take a look into the top right corner right here, you can see that you can add docs yourself. You know, so if you click on this, then first of all, there are a lot of platforms that you have access to, like GitHub, for instance, where we also got the N8N information from, right? But what you can also do is, first of all, provide the text itself, you know, so you can just basically upload a document. And then you can also just provide the according website to a specific documentation page from the software that you want to equip your agent with in regards to its knowledge, right? All right, so this has worked quite nice, and hopefully you can now see how you can massively increase the quality of your AI agent's response within N8N. And I hope this was kind of helpful, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks a lot for your attention, and see ya. Bye.